it would be funny if it weren't so serious. They literally, not a single Republican voted in favor of this plan, and they are literally taking credit for this. If they were in a college, they would be caught out for academic dishonesty. But I guess there's no such thing in Congress.
Yes, I mean, when is the...
Hang on a second. I thought I wasn't able to hear. There we go. We got you. Go ahead. Sorry, we didn't hear the beginning of that, Lieutenant Governor.
Sure. I mean, when has the Republican caucus ever let telling the truth get in the way of reality? I mean, it's like this is the group that's claimed that there was massive voter fraud. Joe Biden, it was rigged for Joe Biden. But when they're on the same ballot, well, the voters love me. I mean, there wasn't any fraud in my race. So, I mean, their estrangement from the truth continues, but it's hardly surprising.
So what does success look like on this front? Because if the American Rescue Plan and the American Jobs Plan and the American Family Plan, which are just basically large government interventions into the economy that some of us think is the right thing to do, if they work fundamentally, does Joe Biden, do Democrats, do people like you ultimately reap the benefits for it? Or do people who put this on their resume or their first 100 days report card benefit from the fact that they fool people into thinking that they were responsible for it?
Well, I mean, we're all going to benefit from things like the American Rescue Plan. I mean, that's obvious. Communities are no stronger than the weakest family. And cities are no stronger than the weakest community within a city, and states are no stronger than the weakest cities in their state. And it just comes down to providing the resources America needs to get through and get past this pandemic. And a question was put to me earlier. It's like, well, what's the midterms going to look like? It's like, well, if it's running on policies that the kind that Joe Biden has already passed and put forward, then I should be so lucky. That's going to be the climate that we're going to find ourselves in the midterm. Yeah, everyone knows that this is the kind of intervention that's needed. And when the Republicans will willingly campaign and tout the success that they actively voted against and tried to stop, it tells you you're heading in the right direction and doing the right things.
So there's the concept of having discussions on policy in the midterms. There's also the issue of the number of Republicans who have not accepted the outcome of this election and continue to fan this delusion of Donald Trump's and the stuff that's going on in a number of state houses and the recount going on in Arizona. There's a public radio station in Harrisburg, WTIF, that has a story that they are telling listeners. I want to just read to our viewers what it says. As part of WITF's commitment to factual reporting, we will use language in our reporting to show how elected officials' actions are connected to the election fraud lie and the insurrection. We are not taking this approach lightly and will apply it to lawmakers who took at least one of these actions: signed on to a Texas lawsuit aimed at invalidating Pennsylvania's election, signed on to a state House or state Senate letter urging congressional representatives to object to or delay certification, and voted against certification. Do you think that kind of thing works to bust up the big lie? It's something that we have to push against. I mean, the bottom line is this. Everyone knows there was no voter fraud. Everyone knows that in Pennsylvania, we've had a total of 4 or 5 documented cases of voter fraud out of nearly 7 million ballots cast. Donald Trump owned the dead mother vote in Pennsylvania, and he got 100% of it. But the truth of the matter is they're going to keep telling these kind of lies, and they're going to keep trying to pass legislation that decreases the access to the polls in Republican-controlled states. They can't do that in Pennsylvania, so all they can do is amplify the propaganda of the big lie, as I mentioned earlier, claiming that we rigged it for Joe Biden, but we kept our Republican members of our congressional delegation around because they're just such swell guys. I mean, that's how they're going to continue to play it, because that's the only way they can play it at this point. Does it strike you as odd? Because, in places like rural Pennsylvania, there could in some quarters be an argument for old-fashioned ideological conservatism in some quarters. Today's Republicans are not making that argument at all. The few that still make it are retiring from politics. But doesn't that strike you as odd that that's the best argument Republicans have right now?
I mean, no, because It's all they've got. I mean, like, to your point, I mean, they've given up on traditional, the whole William Buckley kind of traditional George Will conservatism. It's just how many crazy things can we say? How many lies can we tell? And we've continued to get away with it. And you look at the numbers of the number of Republicans that believe there was election fraud. I don't think they actually believe that there was election fraud. I just think it's a protest belief. But this idea that if you can't traffic in reality, you traffic in fantasy. And they have entire media ecosystems where you can live and not be challenged on any of that. And then until they're actually sued, do they actually acknowledge that they, in fact, take me seriously? That wasn't, how could anyone take me seriously? And they have to end up apologizing to Dominion and these other entities that they've smeared.
I'm going to be talking to Texas State Representative Rafael Anchia next. You've claimed the reward, right, from the Lieutenant Governor of Texas offered money if anybody found voter fraud, and you did find 4 or 5 cases in Pennsylvania. I take it you didn't get your money. I'd have heard if you did, right?
No, we're still waiting for my handsome reward for discovering voter fraud. But I guess the voter fraud that, of course, that they really wanted was the Democratic voter fraud for Joe Biden, which we didn't have any in Pennsylvania. But yes, I'm still waiting on my handsome reward. If you can get Deadbeat Dan to pay up, I mean, that would be outstanding. We would thank you. But regardless, I don't anticipate them ever playing it straight up in the future, because the facts are never on their side, from the pandemic to the relief packages that we've passed to the actual election integrity.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.